This was a bad week for me to sing because my doctor did some messing around with my medications for a test tomorrow, and I'm finding myself very short of breath. So I hope I can get through this song for you. And thanks to Alice and Sonny for helping me. You ask me why my heart keeps singing. You ask me why when things go wrong. But since I found the source of music, I just can't help it. God gave me the song. Too many nights without dawn's promise, too many days without the sun. Then Jesus came and gave life meaning day after day. The song goes on, for since I found the source of music, I just can't help it. God gave me the song. Come walk with me through field and forest. We'll climb the hills and still hear that song. For even hills resound with music. They just can't help it. God gave the song. Too many nights without dawn's promise, too many days without the sun. Then Jesus came and gave life meaning day after day. The song goes on, for once you've found the source of music, you'll always sing it. God gave the song.
You know, I've been the pastor of this church for a period of time. It's not funny. Makes me just light up. See that? And there's always been one characteristic that I have carried in my heart about this church that has been of concern to me. It is that we are a downtown, midtown church. And we come from approximately 50 miles in different directions. We do. You know, we have people who come here from Vacaville and from Galt and from El Dorado Hills and from Auburn and Meadow Vista and all over the place. And it is hard for us. It is hard because of that. I'm not suggesting you don't come, by the way. It is hard for us to form a cohesive, connected body because the people that we see here on Sunday morning, that is really the only time we see them. My guess is that as a rule, you do not run into each other unless you're married. You do not run into each other at the Rayleighs or at whatever the stores may be. We are here. And so it is my goal and my desire, really the burden of my heart, that you establish friendships or relationships with some other people here in this church. I'm not just talking about moments of hospitality. I'm talking about real relationships with each other. You need this. And this church needs you to do this. If we do not do this, then our church attendance becomes another function of our life. But it is not the strength that it is supposed to be and that Jesus died to make it. So when we talked about doing this series, as I have been speaking for some time, called 50 Days of Transformation, we are asking you to take this 10-week period, 7-week period. Actually, the series doesn't begin for 3 weeks. I got 3 weeks of introduction here. I could give it all to you today if you like, or we could take it 1 week at a time. Then we are going to ask you to find someone over this next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, find someone within this congregation that you can meet with on a weekly basis for an hour, somewhere, somehow. We have 4 people, 4 homes open to us. They're listed there in the bulletin, and there are the times that they meet. And we have one more to add to that, which is in South Thomas, and we'll get the word out on that. So we have 4 to begin with. And they are going to gather there. Doesn't make any difference how many. 2, 3, 4, whatever. They're going to be a small group, and we're going to have an intentionally spiritual conversation at those times. And it's going to be basically along the lines of what the sermon is about, starting today. So at the end of the service, we'll hand out an outline. It'll look like something like this. There it is. And it has questions on it. And so what we ask you to do, if you are the leader of the group, and by leader we mean just get it together, okay? Doesn't mean you have to be know any more Bible or anything else. Go through and take the questions that are on here, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever there may be. You don't have these yet. That's why you can't find it. Oh, you task people, you got, where is that? And talk about it and share a little bit. Only have to do it for an hour. Shouldn't be probably more than 3 or 4 people, 5 people at the most. This is what I want us to do for 10 weeks. I'm not asking a lifetime commitment to do this. I'm asking us to do this for 10 weeks in order to build the body of Christ in this place. Are you with me? Yeah, okay. Okay, we'll see. All right. I have a lot of confidence in you, but I know how easy it is for us just to let stuff go by. Because the fact is that if you do not do this, I will not be calling you up and berating you. I have people to do that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So that's what we're going to be doing from now through till nearly Christmas here at the church, okay? So the first thing I want to speak to you about today is I want to speak to you on the subject of how God changes us. Most of us would be willing to admit that we could use some change. Most of us would be willing to admit that we could use some change. Anybody? Okay, all right. Most of us would be willing to admit that. Okay? But really, how does that come about? We have already endeavored to change ourselves in some degree, and we are usually disappointed at the results. Little changes, you know. You may give up bacon for a while, but really we just need God to change us fundamentally and spiritually. Now, don't misunderstand me. God loves you the way you are. That's true. He loves you the way you are, but He loves you too much to let you stay the way you are. That's how much He loves you. He wants to help you grow. He wants to help you to become more like His Son, Jesus. That is what He wants. How can He do this? Well, during this period of time, this series, we're going to look at 7 key areas of your life where you need to be healthy. You need to be balanced. You need to simplify. You need to focus. You need to double down and make sure that you're getting maximum impact of all these 7 areas of your life. We're going to look at, for instance, your spiritual health, our spiritual health, our physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, your relational health. Some of you got problems there, you know, getting along with people. We're going to look at your financial health, and we're going to look at your vocational health. In other words, your job. How do you get along at your job? How is it? Is it satisfying to you? Or is it just a place you show up and go away? God's goal is to transform in all these areas of your life. And He wants to transform you in such a way that He will make you more like Jesus in all these areas of your life. So how does God change us? Am I just, walking down the sidewalk and all of a sudden, suddenly I'm filled with love for everybody? Well, not yet anyway. Doesn't happen like that. It doesn't work that way at all. That's the way we want it to work. Let's read this verse. And this is going to be our memory verse this week, because we're going to have a memory verse every week. And you'll find it right there at the top of the outline there in your notes. So read this with me, will you? As God's Spirit works with us, we are being transformed to become more like Christ. This change from one degree of glory to another comes from the Lord, 2 Corinthians 3:18. So I want you to circle those words right there on your notes. We are being transformed. That's how it happens. The word is being transformed. It's a word that tells us that this is a continuous process. It's not an instance. It doesn't happen instantaneously. It's a process. It's ongoing. And it tells us from one degree of glory to another, one level of maturity to the next. We go through this process. It happens for us. I love this verse when I take the Message translation. Are you familiar with that Bible translation called the Message? When it's translated in the Message paraphrase, and it says this: our lives become gradually brighter and brighter. I like that. See? Brighter and brighter. That's being transformed. And that's what I want to happen in your life. I want your life to become gradually brighter and brighter every day of your life, instead of getting dimmer and dimmer, brighter and brighter. The classic chapter in the Bible of how God transforms us, changes us, grows us, is in Ephesians chapter 4. And in this Ephesians chapter 4, God gives us the 6 elements that He uses to transform us and make us into the people He wants us to be. Makes an outline for us. So we're going to take a look at these 6 elements. And this is going to surprise you a little, I expect. All right? Ephesians 4, verses 11 through 32, 6 elements that God uses Number one, transformation requires coaching. Coaching. You know what a coach is, right? Yeah, it requires coaching. We always grow faster when we have a tutor. We always grow better when we have a trainer, a coach. We grow faster with a spiritual partner, with a mentor, somebody who is motivating us. That's why I want you to find at least one other person to talk about these things with. Superstars, athletes, none of whom I know, but I have seen them on television. CEOs who are paid millions of dollars a year, they all have personal life coaches, people that help them, guide them. Not even spiritual things, but they help them get where they want to go. You need a coach in your life. If you're serious about being better at the end of next year, then you're going to have to find some coach in your life this year. You need to do it now. So what does a coach do? Well, a coach will come to you and they will maximize what you're good at. They maximize your strength and they minimize your weaknesses. That's just the reverse of what we usually think about ourselves when we spend our time thinking about how big our weaknesses are and how poor we are in the area of strength. You need a coach to come along and point out what your priorities should be. When we look at the Bible, we find that all of the great leaders in the Bible had coaches. You didn't know that, did you? See, they all had coaches. Joshua in the Old Testament was coached by Moses. Elisha was coached by Elijah. Solomon was coached by David. David was coached by the prophet Samuel. The 12 disciples, what were they doing? They were all coached by Jesus. The Apostle Paul, he was a coach to Timothy, and Timothy coached others. You just read his books. Timothy's books, 1st and 2nd Timothy. You'll find out that's what he's doing. John, the disciple, the same one that wrote the book of John, coached a man named Polycarp. It's not a very common name anymore, but that was his name, Polycarp, okay? And he coached a man named Irenaeus. This was all in the 1st and 2nd century of the church. And Irenaeus famously refused to deny Christ. They were all martyrs to Christ. You, me, those of us right here, everybody who's listening are benefiting to some degree to the coaches that I've had. You see, it just pass it along. Different people in my own life who were mentors to me, who guided me, models for me, coaches for me. They are all people that have led me in my life, and I have a responsibility to pass on what they have taught me. Now, the question is, who are you going to pass on to? Because you are going to. Everybody needs somebody they're learning from. And everybody needs somebody they're passing it on to. The Bible tells us in Ephesians that God has given us 5 kinds of coaches to the churches. These are group coaches. So let me read this. It's in Ephesians 4:11. I'm going to read it to you, but it'll be there on the screen. I assume it's on the screen. I can't see the screen. Is it on the screen? Yes. I knew it was. All right. Here's what it says. Christ gifted some of us to be apostles. That's another word for missionaries, you know. Prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. Those are the 5 different kinds of coaches there are in every church. So that his people would learn. Circle those words in your outline. So that his people would learn. That's the point of it. So his people would learn to serve and his body would grow strong. Circle would grow strong. That's why we have them. That's why we do it. That's the point. You know, we don't have Sunday school classes here for children just because we don't know what else to do with them. We have Sunday school classes. We have people who go in there and coach little children about the gospel. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to learn about it. We don't have a youth department just to keep them off the streets. You are staying off the streets, aren't you? Yeah, okay. But we have a youth department in order to coach them about the gospel of Jesus Christ and the power of God within their lives. And it says, this will continue until we're united by our faith and understanding of the Son of God. He is writing here. He says, then we will be mature, just as Christ is, and we will be completely like him. That's the goal. Mature as Christ is, completely like him. So, these are the three reasons God gives apostles and prophets and evangelists and pastors and teachers in the church. These are the spiritual coaches within the church. They coach on a group level. That's what those people do, okay? But God says, I want you to have a coach on a personal level. It includes everybody, see? If you're serious about your life, you need to get a coach or a training partner that you share with on a regular basis. Just do. So how do you find someone who's going to be a spiritual coach to you? Well, here's the first question. Do they have to be perfect? No. For one thing, I don't know of anybody we've got that qualifies with that. We are not perfect, see? They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be a person in whom we have confidence in their own spiritual life and their spiritual walk with Christ. So find somebody over these next 8 to 10 weeks. Find somebody that you can make it a point every week to meet. Spend at least an hour talking about these things. One person, and we'll coach each other all along. I'll help you, you'll help me, we'll help each other. Are you with me, folks? Yes. Okay? Over here? Just checking. Okay. Number 2, transformation requires learning the truth. Learning the truth. We find that in the next couple of verses, Jesus says back in John 17, that truth is important for change. In fact, in John 17, Jesus is praying the night before he dies on the cross and will be then resurrected. And he's praying to God the Father, and he's saying to him, use the truth to make them complete. Your word is truth, Jesus said. Make them complete. He's praying for his disciples who were in the garden sleeping at this time. He's praying for us here in Sacramento, right for this moment. Your word is truth. The theological term for this, there is a theological term for it, is called sanctification. It means to grow up, to mature, to be transformed. That's what it's talking about. It means to become the way God wants you to be, the person that God wanted you to be when he had you in mind, because God definitely had you in mind when he brought you into this world. And Jesus said, when you know the truth will set you free. And he says, use the truth to make them complete. Complete in what? And complete in his word. Use the truth, he said. What this is saying is if you really want to change any area of your life, and you have the answers to this more than I do, you need to know and apply the truth in that area of your life. If you want to change, for instance, if you want to change your finances, I said, if you want to change your finances, you've got to know what God says about finances and apply that truth to your life, because he says a lot about finances. And it can solve your financial life. He says a lot about that. If you want to change your marriage, you need to know and apply God's truth about marriage to your life. I understand you're unhappy in your marriage. And I understand that it's because of how you feel about the marriage and about the husband or about the wife. It has nothing to do with that. God has truth for you in marriages. He can help you. If you want to change your sex life, You got to know what God has said about sex. He talks about it. See? Or if you want to know what he says about money or time or anything else, impatience, whatever it may be, God talks about those things, and the things that he says about them are true things, and you find the truth in his word. That's where you find it. You've got to know and apply the truth. The truth is what changes us. Rumors do not change us. Dr. Oz does not change us. See? The truth is what changes us. So here's the goal. It's in Ephesians 4, verses 14 through 15. You got it up there? Read this with me. I want to make sure you're still awake. Here we go. Then we will no longer be like children, forever changing our minds about what we believe because someone has told us something different or made a lie sound like truth. I want to stop there. Does that sound familiar? Yes. They come and they make a lie sound like, tells us right about this in Jesus' book. This is true. Let's read on. Instead, we will hold to the truth in love, becoming more and more like Christ. Circle the words. Like Christ, we will become more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. And then we skip on down to Ephesians 4:21. Read it. Since you have heard all about him, you have learned the truth that is in Jesus. You learn about Jesus, you learn the truth that is in Jesus, and it becomes a very personal factor in your own life. Jesus does. God says that one of the marks of spiritual immaturity is that other people can sway you away from the truth. Is that true? I think that's true. We go along and we're not convinced about stuff. See, we are not convinced about the history of the church or whatever. We don't have any. And so people come along and they've got a better idea. Oh, no. What you need to believe in is you need to believe in aromatherapy. See, or you need to believe in this, or you need to believe in crystals, or you need to do that. I mean, it goes on and on and on. See? And we find ourselves, well, aromatherapy, that smells good, okay. See? It is because, it is because we are spiritually immature and we are just letting people come along with ideas that sound logical and they sway us this way and they sway that way and it still stinks, you see. A spiritually immature believer is always changing their minds about what they believe. Spiritually immature believer. They're always changing their minds about what they believe. They let anybody tell them something different. They make a lie sound like the truth, and they accept it. Why do they do this? Why do people do? Churches are full of people who do this. Why do they do this? It's because they don't know the truth. They have not made the truth a part of their lives. All they've taken is ideas. They need the truth. An idea is just a concept. Truth is a person. It is Jesus Christ. Makes a difference. Makes a difference. It's like that old cliche. You know the one. If you don't stand for something, what? You'll fall for anything. That's right. It may be an old cliche, but it's true. He said instead that this is the mark of maturity. Instead, we will hold to the truth. In other words, we're grabbing onto it, we're holding it in love. Becoming more and more like Christ, you see. That's the third time Christ is mentioned in this passage. Who is the head of his body and the church. So why does God say that we have to know the truth if your life is going to be transformed? Well, I'll tell you why. Here it is. Listen carefully. Every self-defeating behavior in your life. You understand what I mean by self-defeating behavior in your life? Comprende? self-defeating behavior in your life? Do you know what I mean by that? Have you ever had any of those? We'd love to have testimonies, but we won't. All right. Everything that you have, every self-defeating behavior in your life is based on a lie that you are believing. It is based on a lie that you are believing. Are you with me here? If you want to change your life, you've got to identify the lie. And you've got to say about it, that's just not true. That's not true. And then you change it. It may not be a lie about myself. It may be a lie about God, see? Or other people, or what I'm capable of, or all the rest of it. All kinds of lies of these things, self-defeating kinds of things. It may be a lie about success, or fame, or about love, or marriage, or sex, or money. I mean, we've got all these lies, you see, in the society and in the world in which we live. And they force us into doing self-defeating things. Every time I believe that the world says instead of what the Word says, then I get caught in harmful, destructive behavior. I may, for instance, believe that the only way you can have love is if you have sex. It's a lie, see. Leads you down the wrong path. So, I may believe a lie about my past that just isn't true. Or a lie about my worth, my personal worth, just isn't true. Or a lie about my present or my future that just isn't true. That's why the truth is what sets you free. See, it's important. Jesus said, I am the truth. Jesus did not say, I teach the truth. Didn't say that. He didn't say, I point to the truth. It's over there. Doesn't say that. Or he doesn't even say this. He doesn't even say, I'm one of the ways to the truth. He said, I am the truth. The truth is a person. See? Truth is not simply a principle. It's a person. And the more you get to know Jesus Christ, the more that becomes the standard of what's not true. When Jesus Christ is your standard of truth. I am the truth. Now, because Jesus is the truth, you can trust what he says. It says in Ephesians 4:21. Read it with me. Since you have heard all about him, Jesus, you have learned the truth that is in Jesus. I need to learn the truth that is in Jesus. That's what I need to learn. Number 3. Transformation requires new thinking. New thinking. Here's how we work, we people. The way you think determines the way you feel. And the way you feel determines the way you act. If you want to change the way that you act, you don't start with that. Rather, you've got to change the way you feel. And to change the way you feel, you've got to change the way you're thinking. Okay? Every thought is created by a feeling. I hear people say all of the time, I can't help it, that's just the way I feel about it. And that's not true. You can help the way you feel, but you're going to have to change the way you think about it. If you think you can't help it because that's the way you feel, then that becomes true. But we have been given far greater resources than that by our Creator. And He says to us, the way you feel is because of the way that you think. So if I want my life to be transformed, I've got to think in some new ways. What you think is what you are. Let me be very blunt about this, just in case you thought I hadn't been. Okay? If you really want to be different, in these weeks ahead, in this next year, then you are going to have to stop conforming to the world and start transforming in your life. If you really want to change, see, that's change in your mind. You decide it. That's exactly how you do it. Read this with me. Don't keep on living as the ungodly do. Now, he's talking here about unbelievers, okay? People who don't know Jesus. Read on. For they are hopelessly confused in their thinking. Just turn on the television. I mean, we can prove it. Just turn on the television, and you realize it. They are in the process. They are in the business of calling the right thing the wrong thing, and the wrong thing the right thing, and the darkness the light, and the light. They are hopelessly confused. Not because TV is evil, but because we live in a fallen world that is confused. Their closed minds are full of darkness. God is talking about people in the world. You talk to them all the time. You ride light rail with them. You work with them. They're closed minds. They're confused by darkness. You ask them any question of substance other than do they want a latte. You ask them any question of substance and they're not sure. They're not sure what the answer is. I don't know. See? They're far away from the life God gives because they have shut their minds and hardened their hearts against Him. Now you look at them and you say, but they're nice people. I understand they're nice people, but the operating system is screwed up. They have shut their minds to the truth and hardened their hearts to learning anything else. Well, read on. They don't care anymore about right and wrong, and they've indulged themselves in all kinds of immorality, evil thinking, and the constant desire for more. More. It's the greed of the sinful soul. Give me more. Now, this was written 2,000 years ago, you understand? And you could have written it yesterday. And you could write it tomorrow. What I'm saying is that if you really want your life to be transformed, to be what God meant it to be, then you've got to get the true view of you, okay? And the true view is often the exact opposite of what conventional wisdom is about you. You need to know what God thinks about you. You'll be pleasantly surprised when you discover it. He thinks a lot more of you than you do. Stop conforming and start transforming. It says Ephesians 4:23, read it with me. Instead, there must be a spiritual renewal of your thoughts and attitudes. Ephesians 4:23 in the contemporary version says, let the Spirit change your way of thinking. See, that's the key to this. I mean, we understand that we don't think the right way, and we've tried and tried and tried to change our own thinking and saying, I can't think like that anymore, I got to think like this. And we have absolutely no success at that. If that worked, we would all be thin. So he says, let the Spirit change your way of thinking. How can we do that? Let the Spirit change your way of thinking. The fourth thing you've got to do, and this is how God changes us. Number 4, transformation requires cleaning house. There's going to be some things you've got to clear out of your life. Just going to have to be. It tells us in Ephesians, the 4th chapter. Read it with me. So get rid of your old self, which made you live as you used to, the old self that was being destroyed by its deceitful desires. It's like your garage. You know, Those of you that got full garages, I'm speaking from personal testimony here. I know about this. All that junk in there that I can't let go of. I have no idea why. Just can't do it. But that's not enough that it's full of that stuff. I keep finding other stuff and putting it in there. See? You got to let stuff go. I understand this. I know this is a spiritual issue with me, and I have not yet conquered it. That's why I want you all to get together and pray for me so I'll get the garage cleaned out. I need to make this. So in that verse there in your outline, I want you to circle those 3 words where it says, get rid of. Circle those words. Now this phrase, get rid of, this phrase is all through the Bible. The things we are supposed to get rid of. Depending on what you want to change. You're going to have to get rid of some things in your life. This is true of every area of your life, whether it's your health, recreation, entertainment, whatever it is. What do you fill your mind with? What do you give your attention to all the time? Is it helpful, or does it just soak up the hours, just get you down? Get rid of it. Let it go. Read this from Hebrews 12:1. Read with me. We must get rid of everything that slows us down, especially any sin that distracts us, so we can run the race that lies ahead of us. There they are. Circle those words on your outline. Get rid of, slows us down, distracts us, run the race that lies ahead of us. Pretty clear. Have you ever noticed this? Have you ever noticed that it's easier to pick up bad habits than it is to get rid of them? You ever notice that? What a revelation. Yeah. I want to explain this to you before we actually get into transformation, because there's a reason why it's hard to do that, why it's hard to get rid of bad habits. There are 4 reasons, okay? Number 1, it's hard to get rid of these bad habits because I've had them a long time. I've had them a long time, see? You don't collect your habits. You don't collect your habits or your hurts or your hang-ups overnight. That isn't what happened to you. It's taken years to get as messed up as you are. Many of these habits were established back in childhood. And a lot of habits can be self-defeating, but they're familiar. And you're used to them, which leads to the second reason why they're hard to get rid of. The second reason is because I identify with them. We often confuse our identity, our self-understanding, with our defects. We sometimes say to ourselves, oh, I'm a workaholic. I'm always passive or aggressive or weak or an overeater. I'm always that. See? I identify with them. When you see yourself in a certain way, you set up a self-fulfilling prophecy that you act like you expect yourself to act. The third reason is this. It's hard to get rid of bad habits because they have a payoff. A payoff. You get something out of it. One of the great principles of life that I've learned is always true is this. Whatever gets rewarded gets repeated in my life. Whatever gets rewarded gets repeated. Whatever is being repeated is being rewarded somehow. It's practically a definition of addiction. See? We don't do things that aren't rewarding to us. So anytime you see a negative behavior in yourself, or your husband, or your wife, your children, anybody else, you can know that there's some kind of payoff behind that. And number 4, the fourth reason why they're so hard to get rid of these bad habits is because Satan fights it. He doesn't want you to get rid of them. Satan fights it. He doesn't want you to be set free. He does not want you to be transformed. So the moment you say to God, I really want you to make some changes in me, the moment you say to God, I want to become who God wants me, at that very point, the enemy of your soul begins to plant the thoughts that you are hopeless, worthless, and can't change. It does that. The Bible calls Satan the accuser of believers. That's one of the Bible names of Satan, the accuser of believers. He's named after his accusations against you. So you need to understand that transformation requires cleaning house, and it's not going to be easy. Number 5, transformation requires honest community. What in the world is that? Well, that's the next thing Ephesians 4 teaches us. Ephesians 4 tells us that there are some things you're never going to be able to change on your own, some things. One of the things that it teaches us is you need people in your life. Tells us that. You need support. Tells us that. You need a small group. He's telling us that. That's why we insist that everybody get into a small group. It is a solution to this. Find somebody, share. You may be able, maybe you go to somebody's house, maybe it's somebody that you get together with during lunch hour at work. I mean, this is not rocket science. It's just a time when we have a spiritual conversation about spiritual things with somebody who cares about us. If you don't get in a small group, I have to tell you this, probably nothing is going to change in your life. Sorry, I'm just being honest with you. It says in Ephesians 4:25, this is from the Message, read this with me. No more pretense, tell your neighbor the truth. In Christ's body, we are all connected to each other, so if you lie to others, you end up lying to yourself. Yeah. It's saying here that everybody for change needs a community to change in, where they're accepted unconditionally. Let me assure you, this is that community. You are accepted here unconditionally. I understand. Sometimes people say, I don't feel like I belong here. It's not, you're wrong. You may have that feeling, but it's your feeling. It's not because of what we've done. Okay? That's what First Church is meant to be. A place where when you blow it, people don't rub it in, they rub it out. Yep. This is a church, trust me in this. This is a church for people who do not have it all together. Amen. It's practically our foundational principle. Look at this next verse. He's talking about these groups here in the Bible. It's in Ephesians 4:32. Read this with me. Be kind and loving to each other, forgiving each other just as God forgave you in Christ. And he also talks here about what we do in small groups when we're having these meetings. He says, read it, never use harmful words, but speak only what's helpful for building others. Circle the word others. What's helpful for building others. He says that when you're in a small group, you shouldn't only speak about things that build you up. This will be a challenge for some of you, okay? But speak about things that build others. You'll learn how. Up according to their needs, not according to your, that it may benefit those who listen. Ephesians 4:29. So, I have some ground rules about these small groups. Here they are. Pretty simple, but they're important. Small group ground rules. Here they are. Number 1, what is said in the group stays in the group. What is said in the group is by no means postable on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, telephonically, as we say, or any other way. It stays in the group. Can you keep what you hear to yourself? Can you? Thank you both. What about the rest of you? What is said in the group? Because this is going to be a meeting where we are going to be open and honest. See? Number 2, don't minimize others' pain. What that means is that when they tell you that they've just lost a loved one, You just immediately top that by saying that you have 3 family members who were just killed in a car wreck. I mean, come on. Do not minimize. Do not minimize other people's pain. People do this all the time. Well, that's not so bad. Number 3. Oh, the temptation is so great sometimes. But number 3 is, don't try to fix people. Whenever you hear yourself beginning a sentence with saying, well, what you ought to do is, you need to shut up immediately. See? You are to listen, because you have taken the place of Jesus. When you sit there and listen, you are Jesus listening. Yeah. And number 4, focus on my own changes. Not on what somebody else needs to do. Focus on your own. Number 6, transformation requires faith. Faith. Yes, it does. You've got to believe that you can be different. With God's help, you've got to believe that. Here it is, Ephesians 3:20. Read it with me. Now, by his mighty power at work with us, God is able to do far more than we would ever dare ask or even dream of, infinitely beyond our highest prayers, desires, thoughts, or hopes. Wow. Takes faith. Take this from Philippians 4:13. This is the Amplified Version. Read it with me. I can do all things through Christ who empowers me. I am ready for anything through him who infuses inner strength into me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Matthew 9:29. According to your faith will it be done to you. Takes faith to make it happen.
So this song came to me at a time of transformation. If you were here when I gave my testimony earlier this year, this song really meant a lot to me. It's called But You Loved Me Anyway by Sidewalk Prophets. I just want to read you, there was a lot of words in this song, so you may not catch all of them. I just want to read a section of the song. It says, see now, I am the man who yelled out from the crowd for your blood to be spilled on this earth-shaking ground. Yes, then I turned away with a smile on my face. With this sin in my heart, I tried to bury your grace. Then alone in the night, I still called out to you, so ashamed of my life, but you loved me anyway. And it just talks about how each time we turn away from God, and then we decide, you know what, that wasn't a good choice, and we turn back to him, he accepts us every time, and he loves us every time. And it was a song I needed at that point in my life, and I was really glad for God to bring it to me.
The reasons we change, the reasons I die.
you love me anyway. I am the sweat from your brow, but you love